Welcome back to hÉireann. It's Sean and Paul here again. Another busy weekend as we even get a wave here from the Kerry Mount. You might see a change of scenery there as well. And I think, as Paul pointed out before, there's a calendar there from behind just on the countdown to when Kerry will be back in the championship. There we go.
Yes.
There we go. Your own special graphic as well. But a busy week in hurling. We're down to 50% again. Two more teams gone, and we're gone down to the final day. We know our pairing now for the unique Christmas time All Ireland final, and of course the same goes for the Camogie as well. Both semi-finals on Saturday there as well, so we know the pairings for that final as well. And we are 50% there in terms of who we will know for the ladies football semi-final. The other semi-final will be decided this coming Sunday as well. So we're starting to come to the meaty end of it, and of course we do have a little quick forward to do the equivalent really of the football championship, both semi-finals coming next weekend. So it really is the business weekend, no matter what competition takes your preference. Really, we are starting to get into the nitty-gritty. Let's look back on the hurling first then as well. I suppose I won't say it was a surprise, because I think we all touched on it here in last week's show, that we felt that while Kilkenny have some serious firepower up front, and as they showed again, particularly in the first half that Saturday night, that they are a little bit vulnerable, and they are only on the start of that rebuilding journey from their great heights, and they were very good heights as well. But what a performance by Waterford! What a second half performance! A player that's got a lot of stick as well, Paul. I think we all mentioned it as well, and both in terms of we mentioned, and I think it's probably more of an indication of just how much, I suppose, hope and expectation we have really for the player, Austin Gleeson. But my God, did he answer a lot of people and stuffed a lot of people's opinions back the only way that's the right way to do it on the pitch. What a performance by him. And the other standout one, without getting too much of it as well, was Tyga Burka, as well as that sweeper role. And that, for me, if there was one moment that summed up Saturday night, is that one at the end where he caught the ball in the middle field, come out through a crowd and come up and lashed it over the bar. Like, yeah, just manic stuff, really, wasn't it? The stuff of dreams from a Waterford point of view. I think only the third time they've beaten Kilkenny, but what an occasion Saturday night was. You must enjoy that, Paul.
Yeah, definitely from a neutral point of view, I think everyone enjoyed the game of hurling. Like the first 35 minutes, it was a bit cagey, and they were it wasn't really free flowing at all. Like, let's say Cheetah Reid got a lovely goal in the first half. The high ball went in, and Prunty and Richie Hogan went up for it, and he's just so cute and just knows how to come off the shoulder there, and like it was one-on-one, it was in the back of the net. So like they got 2 goals in the first half. Kilkenny, they were kind of really on top, but it wasn't really flowing the game itself. They were 7 points up, and a good friend of mine Snapchat me at half time, and he goes, "What, we're going to do it in the second half?" And I said, "Not a notion. Like Kilkenny are on top here. Like I expected them to drive on. Like, you know, I thought like Richie Hogan starting full forward. I thought it was a bit. I thought they would give Wally Walsh Colin Finlay the start. I was a bit surprised about that. And when they did come on, then eventually they didn't really contribute as much as they have in their locker. So it was 2-11 to 10 points half time, 7 points, and Waterford then just came out. I don't know what Liam Cahill said. Must be a bit of poaching or something that he gave them, but they were really just came out firing, and they just it was as if they were very tense in the first half, and they just said, listen, as we only 35 minutes here, let's just go for it. And as you said, like Austin Gleeson was to the fore there, Jamie Byrne, Hutchison came in with a point, Montgomery came on after the first water break. That was a good decision there by Liam Cahill. He took off Jake Dillon after 18 minutes. That was a big call, like in an All-Ireland semi-final, but it actually worked to his advantage. Jack Fagan, he's a Meath native, but he's playing for Waterford there this year, and he came back. He was kind of drifting back for the puckouts in the second half, and he caught 2 in the Kilkenny, let's say, half-forward line, the Waterford half-back line, which was strange to see him there because he should be Waterford half-forward. So he did very well there. And like Callum Lyons kind of got 2 points in the first half, and he was exceptional there, wing back. He seems to be motoring really well. And with the substitution then at Darragh Lyons, he got a goal. He got the second goal then for Waterford. So it was for a neutral, it was a serious game to watch the second half. Like, Kilkenny then, on the other hand, they didn't have anyone when the pressure cooker came. They didn't really have any answer. Like TJ Reid and John Donnelly in the first half was really keeping the show on the road there. And then in the second half, then they had no response. Even they went into the kind of third quarter, and I thought Cody might, get them going again, but they didn't have any answer in the second half. They just couldn't keep up to Waterford. The momentum, the drive that they had, they just couldn't match it. And Waterford fully deserved their win, and they will be a tough, they'll probably come in as underdogs into the final, but that they love that. So it's going to be, they deserve their win for sure.
Well, absolutely, and we'll go now to our hurling correspondent here in Kerry, who predicted this. And I know you were claiming to be modest before earlier on. I'm sure you're going to use that it's just because it's the hurling, but you're quick to remind us as well that you got that one right in the WhatsApp group. It seemed like Kilkenny were out of town really in the first half after that performance really, and that was like the age-old Kilkenny. Were you nervous at any stage, or did you have full confidence in your own conviction and your own opinion that you knew Waterford were going to come out and shoot the lights in the second half?
Well, I wouldn't say I was overly confident. I mean, I know we were having the fun on the WhatsApp group. I think Paul put up a message after saying, was I confident at half-time? I wasn't, because Kilkenny just seemed to have came to the party, and Waterford were just kind of they weren't reactive. Kilkenny were setting the pace, and Waterford just weren't able to handle it. I think they were 9 down at one stage in the first half, and you're thinking, geez, this could get ugly. But momentum is just, and Paul mentioned it, momentum is a serious thing, and it's very, very hard to stop. And I mean, if you had said to me at half time in that game that Waterford would be level by the 50th minute, I mean, you would have been shaking your head. It was just incredible. Liam Cahill and his management team deserve a lot of credit. Maybe they did come down the road at half-time of just saying to their players, look, lads, this is it. As Paul said, we've got 35 minutes of hurling here left in our year. Why don't we just have a crack at it? And my goodness, they just turned it on. That third quarter was just sensational. They blew Kilkenny out of the way, and had 4 points to spare at the end. Stephen Bennett led the charge. I thought he was outstanding. 110 he finished with, was it? Just incredible. And Waterford's leaders stood up. Now, maybe the pressure was off because it looked like they were going to be beaten, and maybe they played with a little bit of abandon, and they were just able to express themselves that bit more in the second half. But Paul made a great point, and it goes back to your point at the start, Jonathan, about Kilkenny. Because Cody is going through this next phase of players and this next group, and he's trying to start again in some way, they didn't have those leaders when Waterford's momentum was coming at them. I know TJ did his usual, like he ended up with 114, and they had some decent performances around the field, particularly in the first half. But when that Waterford train was coming down the tracks and just building steam all the time, Kilkenny were missing those guys that they would have had in the past to just shut them down, stem the flow, and get the game back in their back to their pace again. They just didn't have it the last day. They have a lot of young fellas. I'd be interesting to hear Paul's view actually on seeing, he's played at the highest level in terms of hurling, and it goes for football and any sport. But what was it, Paul? Do you think would you have started Hogan, or would you have kept him in reserve? Would you have stuck to the team that won the quarter-final?
I would have stuck to the team. I would have definitely stuck to Colin Finlay, 14 anyway, and Hogan. Like, he did great when he came on for the 15 or 20 minutes against Galway, but maybe he was going very well in training, but yeah. I don't think I definitely would have booked Colin Finlay. He's a seriously strong man, and like, he's some man to get a goal. Like, once he gets the ball, he doesn't really have a massive strike, or he won't, like, if he's on the 65-yard line, like, he mightn't tip it over the bar over his shoulder, but if he's coming at you, it's like a rugby player. Like, there's no stopping him. But I think he would have been better I think he was disappointed with his performance against Galway. I think he would have been mad to put a stamp, like, to kind of redeem himself. And I just think that bringing Richie Hogan on would have been like, oh, lovely. Richie's coming on here in the 55th minute. Hopefully he'll do the same again as he did in Galway. Because I know, let's say he's at the other side of 30, and he's a lot of injuries and stuff. Like, he's still class, but I think bringing him on would have been definitely would have been my option. But listen, Cody has a serious record. So
well, exactly, and by any stretch of the imagination, I'm not questioning Brian Cody. And at half time, we would have said it was the right call because they were 7 points clear. But sometimes you just have to maybe look at, what's worked for you in the past, and maybe going down the stretch when he looked behind him, he'd used his aces.
It's
rather
gone
than
straight away, isn't it?
Exactly. Whereas, coming down the stretch with Waterford on top would have been a perfect time to spring Hogan. But look, in fairness, I have to say Cody was very he was very, very honest after the game. He's not a man for excuses. He said, we were beaten fair and square. I'm not going looking for excuses after a game like that. And that's just typical of the guy. But I think Waterford, Liam Cahill deserves an amount of credit. First time ever we're going to have a Waterford Limerick All-Ireland final, and in the year that's in it, who's to say that Waterford won't cause an upset and win it? I think probably, would I dare to say that a lot of the other counties in Ireland would like to see them do it, bar Limerick, but they're going to have a tough task against a very good Limerick side,
Yeah, I think Nathan Murphy made a very good tweet. I think it might have been Sunday night, it might even be Saturday night after the Waterford game. It was like, there's no vaccine in the world ready for Mayo and Waterford winning the All Ireland, and how very true. I think you both made a very good point there on Fennelly as well, and just to touch on it as well, we'll mention a bit more, but I think Fennelly's performance, or lack of performance, or whatever way you wanted to describe how the Leinster final went for him, you have to bear in mind as well, for me, he was up against the best full-back in the game. Like, Dai Burke is just a machine, and we saw him in the other semi-final there as well against Limerick. Like, some of those balls that he's catching and come around, and particularly against a player who, and I mean this in a polite way and in a compliment way, that Fennelly uses his strength, and that's one of his biggest assets. He's up against a player that's probably a freak in terms of being equally as strong, and so that drive that you have initially isn't. I suppose Dai was able to disguise that down a bit more, so you probably aren't getting like for like. I think I love. He won't be a personal fan of it, but I love the angry Richie Hogan coming on and the wind up that he can do for 15, 20 minutes, a half an hour, whatever. I think that would have been a lot more beneficial. But look, we're all experts. Afterwards, it's very easy to point out, and as he said at half time, it looked like it was the right call. Just on that, Sean, though, can you remember, come back in your own playing days, to be in a situation like that where you're kind of cruising at half time, without even meaning it, you're thinking of, okay, the All-Ireland finals in a couple of weeks' time, particularly the way the fixtures are so condensed. I don't want to get hurt here, perhaps. I'm not saying for 1 second that was the mind, but it's how difficult is it then again when you are playing an opponent that comes out in the second half and is just like kamikaze? Do you know what? The hell of this. I'm just going to drive into every ball here, going to empty the tank here. How hard is it to kind of stem that flow, for want of a better word? Or is there any games you can think of, either of you, where you've been in that situation, both ways even?
Yeah, I think it's all about game management, Jonathan. If you have a healthy lead at half time and the other team starts eating into it and things mightn't be going your way, I think it's crucial that you try and manage the game as best as possible. Now, whether a little bit of sportsmanship comes in, maybe
drop it down an injury.
Well, just
down.
Breaking the momentum. Anything you can do at all to break the momentum. I can't think of any games off the top of my head, but I know that we used to discuss things like that in terms of, if a team gets a run of maybe 2-3 scores in a row and you haven't been able to get up the field to answer it, can somebody go down and not feign injury, but maybe make the most of something? Or
well, just for the record, sorry as well, that Sean O'Sullivan calls Kerry divers. Is that where we're coming with the headline with this now?
Yeah, there's enough of headlines going on down in Kerry.
I thought you played the beautiful game, no dark arts whatsoever.
Yeah, no, we do.
Total football.
But another thing then is the management, the manager. I mean, it may be a case of stopping the game to make a substitution, maybe, you know, making some positional switches just to try and, you know, get the swing of the game back into your get the ball back in your court, I suppose is the best way of putting it. But at the end of the day, it's all down to the players on the field, and you know that you can feel it, and Paul will tell you as well, you can feel if the momentum is shifting, and there's, as a player, as a group of players, you just have to try and come together. Obviously, the water breaks this year have been a huge thing in terms of either breaking momentum for a team or starting momentum for a team. So in a typical year, you wouldn't have those. So you try and find some other way of breaking it up. But it can be very difficult to stop, particularly the way Waterford came out there in the second half. That third quarter was just ridiculous. Very, very hard to stop. Very hard to stop. And even the best manager in the world and the best players in the country in Kilkenny couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's the thing as well. And you think back to the peak Kilkenny team, you go back to maybe 13, 14, 15, you know, where I think that's where Kilkenny were at the peak of the power. And like from a Galway point of view, we still have horrors even thinking back to some of those battles and games. But like Galway at the time were a bit more free-flowing. They probably weren't as structured or as tactical in terms of what they've evolved to now. And they were free-flowing, and like even against Kilkenny, they would, as good as Kilkenny were, they would cut them up and they would get goals. But it all felt like, and maybe this is like a post-traumatic stress order or whatever you want to call it from it, but it felt like the Kilkenny teams, if they conceded a goal and there'd be a big roar of the crowd, and you felt like the game was coming to you, Kilkenny would just pop down and they would just tap over 2 or 3 points in the blink of an eye, and then they would kill that stem. Just how that's probably like, because Cody isn't an inexperienced manager, is the best hurling manager of the modern game, and he wasn't able, they weren't able to stem the flow of it. Just how is that? It's probably you're more relying on your players even, and the experience, and probably their parents as well, passed down of it. So stumble over my words, but in a situation like that, you kind of have to have, I guess, leaders on the pitch, and it's probably some of the Kilkenny players are probably a year or two short of developing that on game streetwiseness or whatever you want to call it yet.
Yeah, I think like if you look back at them teams, like you could have Owen Larkin, like serious man. If the goal went in, you could nearly put the high ball down top Owen Larkin, serious man, just to come in for a catch and maybe win a free or just tap it over the bar. King Henry sure is King Henry, like, you know, he's not called King for no reason, like, so like he was always another solid man to get a score or free to come up then. And like they had some leaders back then, like Tommy Walsh as well in the backs there, like, you know,
come out with a ball through a crowd. Yeah,
real character that they kind of they developed. They kind of knew, as they've played in so many big games, they knew, okay, we're after going 2 or 3 points down, or we're after the opposition team are after getting a goal, right, lad? They might just give themselves a nod, or they might give a hurl to them up the backside or something, and say, right, lads, we need to do something here, or else the game is going to go away from them. So they kind of knew the moments they had to come to the fore. And I think a lot of them was like before halftime and after halftime. I think I heard Brian Cody in an interview said like that is one of the most crucial times, like the momentum you get. Like if you're 3 points down on the 30th minute and you get a goal or 3 more points, and half time it's level game, or after half time you get 3 or 4 points on the opposition, you know, they kind of picked their moments, and once they got on top, they stayed on top. They did not let up. That's what the good teams do. They just do not, they don't care. They say, oh, we're after getting 4 or 5 points, you can get 1 or 2 now if you want. No, they won't say that. They'll say, we need to get another 4 or 5. So they're just really, really relentless. And that's what the good kind of teams do. So I just, for Kilkenny, like, they had such a great players and role models like Michael Fennelly and all these lads, and it's just, they're kind of, the lads that they have now is kind of, you know, they got Conor Brown, and they've got Conor Delaney, and Joe Wallace, I think, is back there, and Joe Martin Keoghan, Owen Cody, John Donnelly. They're all young, and they all just need these games to get used to it. And I'm like, there's no doubt about it. Kilkenny will be back up to the top. Like they won a Leinster final, and we're still
very true. That, exactly.
You know,
and at the moment, that's where hurling has it over the football, lads. Is that, okay, we're talking about Kilkenny losing an All-Ireland semi-final here, and we'll talk about yourselves, Galway, in a minute. But like, you just know in your heart of hearts that both those teams will be back in the mix again next year, along with Tipperary, along with Cork, along with possibly Wexford, along with Clare, and on top of your Waterfords and your Limericks that are in the final. That's the difference between the hurling and the football at the moment. Whereas in the football, there's one team out in front by a long way, and the rest, you really, okay, bar your couple of maybe teams that come through year in, year out. After that, you don't really know what's coming and who's going to challenge. Whereas in the hurling, I could put a dartboard up here in the office and put all those teams I just named and throw a dart, and you could get the All-Ireland winner. Do you know what I mean? So that's what makes it so competitive, and that's why the hurling championship is such a joy to watch for non-hurling fans like ourselves here, because it's just so competitive, and every year it throws up a team that you just at the start of the year mightn't have been in the conversation, and all of a sudden they're in the All-Ireland final or winning it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's only recently as well. Sorry to put in, Paul, but you don't have to go back that long before Kilkenny were the Dublin. And the hurling championship was unwatchable there. You go back 10, 15 years, hurling championship was pretty much unwatchable because Kilkenny bet them by Jesus out of every team around them, and look at the amount of All-Irelands that they won. So I suppose there is swings and roundabouts. It's hard to see anything coming in football terms for a little while, but you were right, it is the one, I suppose, advantage, and that's why I think the hurling championship has been so. You saw the viewing figures there for the Galway Limerick game at the weekend as well. It was class. I think half the TV audience. I know it's a little distorted because you're probably looking at 60, 70,000 people that would have been in Croke Park at the game were now at home. But even still, it's huge numbers when you factor in the on-demand services, et cetera, available. But sorry, Paul, you wanted to come in there?
I was just coming in there on Sean's point there on like the variety of teams that there's kind of one team a year. Like Wexford were the team last year. Like no one really predicted them to be there for the winning of the All-Ireland. They were in the semi-final. It was on like the 62nd minute. The Tipperary got let sent off. They were like 2 or 3 points up, and you're like,
and they blew it.
Well, yes, right, maybe, but
it was such a big opportunity for them. I was gutted for Wexford at the time because it was such a big opportunity to be in a final. Like the crowd, like you just have to go to any game that Wexford are playing in. Like they're like almost the Mayo of the hurling championship. Such a fanatical crowd. It's great to see. Like you'd see the swarm. I think nobody left in Wexford for any of their games. There just flows of cars coming through. But it was such a big opportunity that they threw away, I feel.
Yeah, it was, but like I was just kind of saying about Sean's point, the team that coming through, like, and I think Waterford are obviously the team this year. Like no one really would have said at the start of the year. I don't know, they probably would have been 10, 12, 14 to 1 maybe to win the All-Ireland at the start of the year, and it's a 50-50 battle now. Anything could happen on the day. So like it's great to see like that there's kind of a team coming that no one really expects. It really brings excitement to and it gives other teams then, like other teams will say, oh, how did Waterford get to the All-Ireland? We are definitely better than them, like, or we just put our heads down, lads, this for the next year, 2021, we'll be back there. So like there's as the Galway and Tipperary match, there's only 2 points in it. Like all these games are so tight, and like Cork are kind of slightly behind, but like they lost, I think, by 4 points to Tipperary. So like they're all close matches. There's like, as you said, now when Kilkenny were winning a lot of the All-Irelands, like all the other teams kind of stepped up. Dublin now are winning all the All-Irelands. I don't know, like maybe there was too much money pumped into them, but not like Kilkenny. But
controversial.
Someone had to say it, yeah. But yeah, I don't
lads,
know.
It's not just spending money. Let's put that on through. You look at United, say, across the codes, they're throwing money left, right, and centre, and they're still in absolute shambles. It's not just spending money, yes, but sure, look, it was a Kerry man that sorted it all out for Dublin. He'll have to do the same now. He'll have to do the same now to his own county.
Can we finish on a positive note on the Waterford performance? And you mentioned him at the start. I was absolutely delighted for Austin Gleeson. Like, he's taken a bit of criticism. I'm sure he hasn't taken it within Waterford circles, but he probably took a lot of criticism from outside, in that he wasn't stepping up to the plate and that he wasn't delivering performances that they needed him to. I thought he was outstanding the last night when they really needed him. People were saying that maybe taking on those shots, that there was maybe guys in better positions to receive a pass, and you could probably hear it from when there's no crowd in the stadium that fellas were calling for the pass. But by God, they weren't long, patting him on the back, because he nailed every shot he took. I thought he was excellent. And when Waterford needed leaders, he stood up and showed what a quality hurler he is. And, for Liam Cahill to have that guy, bouncing now going into an All-Ireland final, yeah, it's a good place to be. So I was thrilled for Austin Gleeson, yeah.
Absolutely. But before we move on from Waterford, there is one of our I suppose participants in the competition who Paul Martin, who got in touch with us there over the weekend. Hope you're enjoying the celebrations, Paul. We'll put it. I just want to put it up on the screen here just to acknowledge it here now. If it comes up for me in a minute, no, it's still not there. But he is top of the overall, both the weekly and the overall hurling prediction competition, which is of course available on iPredict.com to join along there. I'll try again to share the screen. Still no sign of it yet, but coming through. But he is top of both the weekly and the monthly, as he said, and he's very aptly named Up the Dacia. So maybe there's an omen in that as well. I have it coming here right now if the computer just decides to play along with me. But we can see him there, top on. That is the overall competition, and he is sitting high and colourful up on top spot there with an overall 14 points, which is some going when you consider that I would consider myself an absolute clown, and I'm half his total points, which is some going. And then we look, of course, he's been top of the weekly table, I believe, as well. I believe so, definitely on the overall. So I may as well put myself to shame here as well and look at my hurling predictions from last week. That is a pitiful 2 out of 2, but incorrect. The wrong scape of the wrong side of the town. Sean, you were on a winner. You got both of them correct. And Paul, how did you get on? I know you would have got caught in the Galway one. And did you go for Waterford in the end, or did you jump on the Kilkenny bandwagon?
I jumped on the Kilkenny bandwagon.
Okay, I don't feel as bad. I don't feel as bad then. So there were two kind of games that I suppose we're probably, myself and Paul were biased in one of the manos. There was definitely a heart ruling it. It was nearly going, but look, let's get it out of the way then. Not out of the way. Let's get the. I think we took the Mickey out of Sean a couple of weeks ago in terms of the first bit of therapy after first real talking point. I know we've had a couple of messages back and forth, but haven't really talked about it to anyone that much. It still hurts a little. Galway came up short in Croker at the weekend. A strange game. Galway started excellently. I thought they were bang on, very well set up against a team that's so, and rightly, this isn't a dig or anything, and very rightly, the informed team. I think it's only one major defeat in 2 years, and that's one All-Ireland and 2 leagues as well. In between that as well, they are the team that everyone aspires to in the hurling world. Give them a good run for the money. Limerick pulled away then before half-time, but Galway fought back, and even towards the end, when it looks like it was curtains really, Limerick had gone back in the lead. Joe Canny, who we wish the best, I think the whole sporting world was kind of grimaced. We saw another one in the Wolves Arsenal game as well, a nasty one there at the weekend as well. But it's like running into a lorry when you're coming up against Mr. Cooney coming flying towards you and caught on the wrong side. Such a freak accident, but my God, did that look sore. But it looked like everything was going astray, but yet they got a bit of life. They fought back into it, but Limerick showed their class then and just saw the game. Paul, apart from the obvious disappointment, and we'll definitely touch on Limerick, but just from the Galway point of view first, because Limerick have got all the headlines, and rightly so, but from a Galway point of view, you got to be pleased enough with large aspects of the game, really, I guess.
Yeah, definitely the real positive was the first 17, 18 minutes. They had the tactics spot on, the setup really good. Like bringing on, there was a late change with Sean Loftus coming on for Fintan Burke, and everyone's thinking, what's the think behind that? So Sean Loftus went straight in on Graham Mulcahy. Graham Mulcahy got taken off after the 40th minute. He did a super job on him, and Graham Mulcahy formed all year, so he did a super job. So that was very good by Shane O'Neill, and he got a lot of matchups right. And they were I was hoping they'd forget about the water break, or they might just pass it for this match or something like that. But like, because they were totally on top, and then after the water break, then it kind of goes to show fair play to John Kiley and their stats and Paul Kinnock there. Like, they really they looked at it and said, right, we need to change. And I think they were saying on RTE about the tactics board, and they were fascinated by what they were doing with that. But they got to grips with what Galway did, and then they went out in the second period and they changed it up, and then they really gave Garrett Hegarty more room. Tom Morrissey really came into it there in the second quarter, and they got up into 15-10, or no, 15-13. And obviously, like, Joe Canning got three sidelines in the first half, which brought up to 15-13. So like, that was it was in the melting pot then. It was 15-13, but Limerick came out then on the second half, did okay. They had chances to really like kill off the game. Éireann Murphy, actually, he got a good few saves in that period. Dave Reedy definitely came in, and Éireann Murphy had a good save and hit the post and went out for a 65, and Aaron Glam missed it, and that was kind of a momentum swing.
You felt like those are the moments they were coming back into the game.
Absolutely, yeah. And it just then, like, on the 25th minute, I know you were talking earlier there about like momentum. Like, if Limerick are going well, like, go down and pretend you're injured. So like, Limerick were going well, and Colin Many went down around the 20th minute there, and I was like, oh lovely, he's going down there now. He's not. He's
put the jinxers on of the karma on you.
Yeah, and then he had to be taken off, and he is so vital to the midfield area in the wing forward. Like, he just picks up loose ball. He got a savage point there just outside on the sideline there on the 45. Like, his bad side, sure, I don't think he has a bad side, to be honest, but he just glided it over the bar, and he's so influential there in the middle. He was a massive loss there to Galway. But then, at the second half, then Limerick could have killed them off, but they didn't. Galway just hung in, and then obviously Joe then got the injury then on the 60th minute, which didn't help things, because he's very influential as well as Colin Many. So there were two big losses to Galway, and I think then, like, really the subs that Limerick brought on, I think that really just drove it home. Like, Peter Casey got a point, but he got as I was talking about Owen Larkin earlier on, the puck out came down, Casey caught it, hand passed it to Adrian Breen and went over the bar, and he was another sub that came on. He contributed with a point. Dave Reedy, as I said, did very well coming in. And then Pat Ryan, he only got one ball, but like, it was, as I say, a wide is nearly better than a score. It was on the last minute there, and I think there was 2 points in it. Like, if Galway got that ball, went down the field, they could have got another point, and then the ref could have drew with the next play. But Pat Ryan got it, kind of killed the ball, stolen out to the side, and then went for a shot, but it just went wide. But I think, as probably answering your question, it was positive from Galway. They brought a lot of young lads in this year. Like, Evan Nyland came on. First thing he got was a free, like, in the middle of Croke Park. Like, it's not easy.
On your own 65, just to tip it over, coming in cold, like.
And then he got another point in a few minutes after. So there is positive. Finta Burke came in this year. Shane Cooney, Brian Concannon has really come to
got a lease of life.
Yeah. So Galway, really, they have a few positives. They'll be obviously disappointed, but they have a good few positives coming on this year.
And Sean, I think I know hurling people is probably turning their graves at this, but it felt like to me watching the, I think Éireann Murphy's got a lot of stick really over the puckouts, but it wasn't, when we're criticising the puckouts, it wasn't just him, it was the whole movement. It was like the Dublin full course. What do we do? Do we call it a basketball, an NFL full squeeze, or whatever? We've seen a couple of different variations of it where they're looking, and that tactics board that Paul kind of discussed on there as well. Dublin do that a good bit as well, where they just squeeze the life out of opposition keepers. So difficult, isn't it? Because and particularly when you have a younger keeper, like his first All-Ireland semi-final as well, as these are big occasions. That's when if you compare two teams across the codes, probably Limerick and Dublin is probably the most apt kind of, I suppose, similarity, really, isn't it?
It was a huge factor, Jonathan, because as Paul rightly said, when Limerick got to that first water break, Kiley and his management team were able to see exactly where Limerick needed to up the ante, and the number one place they went for were Murphy's puckouts. Now, I take your point that the movement out the field might have been the best for him, particularly in the second half. I thought when the game was going down the stretch, there was some bad decisions by him and by the lack of movement outside him, and it really came back to haunt Galway, But look, you have to give credit there to Limerick. Kylie saw that it was an area that they could push up on. They probably weren't doing it as much in the first quarter, but they certainly tidied it up, and it forced Galway into mistakes. And if there's any team, particularly like Dublin in the football, as you said, if there's any team that you don't want to make mistakes against, it's this Limerick side. I'm just really, really impressed by Limerick. Their half-forward line, Haggerty, Lynch and Morrissey, they contributed 11 points from play between the three of them. I don't know, can you remember it, Cian Lynch in the second half, just late in the game, he caught a ball and he was being fouled actually when he came down with it. And in the one movement, he held his man off. It's just unbelievable, the skill in hurling, He caught it in the hand, held his man off, and in the same movement looked inside, and all in one movement gave a hand pass inside. And I actually think, was it Reedy put it wide? I think somebody put it wide. It might have been Morrissey actually put it wide, but it was just it just summed up to me the skill in that Limerick team. Haggerty is an absolute animal of a man. He's a man mountain. I mean, two of his strides are probably 5 or 6 of ours. He's ridiculous. And look, it just goes to show the development of this Limerick team in the last few years. They've just turned into they're a machine. And they just ground it out. They weren't spectacular. They had a terrible start, and that's credit there to Galway. They just ground it out. They did what they had to do. They sorted out where they could get at Galway. Galway came back at them down the stretch, and I was impressed with Nyland. But I have to say that Limerick never panicked, even when Joe Canning was down for, was it 8 or 9 minutes, and Galway got, came back and obviously got a little bit of a spur on from that. You never saw panic in Limerick. They just kept doing the right things. They kept tackling hard. They kept supporting the man on the ball. They kept picking out the right option all the time. And they just stretched out their lead again and just did enough. And they're a well-oiled machine. They'll be favourites going into the All-Ireland final, and rightly so, in my opinion.
Yeah, so just to quickly to mention on a few other things that kind of caught my eye over the weekend then as well. Obviously, the hurling caught a lot of attention, but I have to say I was up in Breffni Park Saturday night at the ladies football semi-final, the first one, Dublin Armagh. Incidentally, the second semi-final was due to be played last Sunday as well, but that had to be pushed out because Cork have a number of players playing both codes. The Camogie semi-finals were on as well, so Dublin were victorious against a very youthful, but my God, a pleasure to watch Armagh side. They are in a sport that's Gaelic football that has been, I suppose, accused of being rotten to watch at times. The blanket defences, rugby league, hand passes through the lines and move forward. Armagh are just a breath to wash, and I have to say, Amy Mackin really caught my eye, I have to say, at the weekend as well. An absolute wand of a left foot. Like, she got one score there in the second half, running down the right side of the wing, didn't even break stride, and just this beautiful ping of an outside of the left, and the ball kind of curled over. It was one of those where you kind of go, wow, unbelievable. And then the goal that she got was just, I know, speaking to McBoland afterwards, the Dublin manager, he's just going, wow, like, what can you even do about that? Like, she comes through a crowd and then arrows it. Like, you couldn't pick up the ball and put it in more in the top corner than what she did. But such a talent there as well. Ultimately, I suppose Dublin showed their experience and their doggedness, and it is their 7th All-Ireland final in a row. They're going for 4 in a row, so it's kind of a replica of the men's game being repeated there. So a lot of the good structures that are put in place, they're seeing the rewards on both sides of the code as well. But yeah, no, it was actually a great game of football, and you definitely have to keep an eye out for that Armagh team down the road. It'll be an interesting one next weekend as well. I know we'll be keeping an eye on our maroon tinted glasses on this side of the screen. We'll be cheering on Galway. Hopefully they can progress to the final. I think we all have nightmares about the final last year. It was a horrible game. It was a horrible day. It was absolutely Baltic cold in Croke Park. It was a very low scoring affair, and probably the weather kind of determined a lot of that, the way that game went as well. But we'll hope that Galway can come on and maybe put one step more. But Cork is going to be a very difficult test as well. And then of course the Camogie semi-finals were on Saturday as well, and we are represented by the maroon and white in the final as well. Galway made it through to the final. They will play Kilkenny. I'm not sure did either you catch much of that over the weekend. Kilkenny look very, very sharp and classy then as well. So a difficult occasion, but Galway Kilkenny in a final. It doesn't matter what the sport, if it's tiddlywinks or whatever, you're going to be keeping an eye on it. You know those games will be close, so we will keep an eye out for that, as we will the other semi-final. And there's another Christmas All-Ireland in the ladies, the 20th of December in Croker. Quite a ring to that, I know. Spoke to a couple of the Dublin players afterwards. I think Carla Rose said, "Where else would you want to be at Christmas time?" It's hard to disagree with any of that. But speaking, well, actually, do you know what we'll do? We'll do a little feature now. I'll put you both on the spot there as well before we go ahead and preview. Paul is getting nervous here now down the road. I kind of caught him on the hop there. On Paul is a guy that likes to be very prepared, gets his notes out done. I think he was up till 3 o'clock this morning doing his preparation notes for this as well. Definitely putting there's no just turning up with a scrag of paper and talking and waffle.
I'm putting in a big shift, like I'm putting.
You are. The equipment, the hard winter training. I think you were even doing. What was those gym movements you were describing off air as well? You're doing a few. Sean is going through a bit of PT with you there as well, keeping in shape there as well.
He gave me an old gym session, but all I see is Guinness and Heineken, and I don't know really what kind of a. I'm not sure he's getting me prepared.
I know, but you did it. You did it to the best of your ability. You know, you give it everything for that as well. But just a little. Good taste, bad taste from the weekend. One good thing that you liked over the weekend, and one that you were kind of left that bitter moment. And look, sure, I will start it off just to make it easy for you, since you felt aggrieved that you were put on the spot. I have to say, good taste of the weekend has to be that Amy Mackin goal, because it was just to see it in the flesh. Watched it back a good few times. It was doing the rounds on social media and seen it on the Sunday Game and the other highlights programs. It didn't even do it justice compared to what we saw at first time, as you often the case really with any form of sport. But that was just wow, such a class act, and coming back after a bad injury as well, and definitely one to keep an eye out coming through. The bad taste, I could pick the whole semi-final really from yesterday from a Galway point of view. There wasn't really. I know we've talked about in previous weeks where you'd see something that you didn't like in terms of cynical play or whatever. It wasn't really a lot of that kind of caught the eye. I know there's a couple of Galway rose-tinted glasses are complaining about a decision here and there, but nothing that you could really write home about. Bad taste, we'll go with Cannon getting badly injured. You never like to see that. It doesn't matter who the player is. That moment of eeriness around. Yes, it is a little bit eerie, and it was when you have an empty crowd at Croke Park. But even still, I think you could hear collectively from the whole country going around, "Ooh, that looked nasty." And as you said, we wish him. I hope I haven't robbed any of your picks from earlier. If you have, feel free to reuse them there again. So, Paul, going over to you. You look nervous there. What is your good taste from the weekend gone by?
Yeah, definitely on the spot. Good taste, I suppose, like as we kind of said earlier on, like Waterford, it's always great to see a team that wasn't really expected to get into the All-Ireland final, and it's great to see from a neutral point of view Waterford getting into the final. You think of all the greats like the Shanahans, Milan, Kim McGrath, like they didn't get the All-Ireland, but they provided entertainment for years, in Munster finals and nearly getting there. So it's great to see Waterford coming back into the final, and it's great to see Gleeson and Ty de Burke is absolutely flying at him. Jamie Barron there, he got the most possessions in the quarterfinal there for Waterford, and I'd say he got the same again there yesterday. He was just on the ball all the time, and he's just really influential there. So yeah, just from a neutral side, it's great to see Waterford back in. Bad taste, obviously it's obviously it's disappointing that Galway aren't in the All-Ireland final. I think I kind of have two. Let's say I'll Garrett Hegarty there, when they're all kind of saying that it was a dirty belt there in Joe Canning, and I honestly don't think it was. The people are saying, oh, it should have been a red card there. Joanne Cantwell's going on, but in the rule book, that should be a red card there. He's after hitting them directly across the back, but like it's not like if as Henry said, you can't do everything by the rule book. Like if you examined every free and every shoulder and every belt, you know, most of them be overturned nearly. You know, it's just like hurling is so fast, especially when you're playing it, that you barely have time to think. It's all about instinct. And yeah, I just don't think that a lot of people are building it up that it was a red card. I don't think it was. I think just you have to play the game hard and fair. And I just think it was definitely a free. The referee, I didn't think was great, but I think it was definitely a free, and it deserved a yellow card. But I don't think it was a red card. And the other point is, Donald Cusack does not give enough credit to Galway on the RT.
Good God! If that's an unprepared answer, I better extend the show a bit longer for next week if he's going to be prepared. Sean, can you keep it briefer than that?
I'll keep it very brief, Jonathan.
Okay,
yeah. How can I follow that?
I don't know. Show your.
My good taste has to be Joe Kenning's sidelines, his 4 sidelines. I mean, wow! It's just I think the statisticians were trying to find out when I think Michael Dignan was on the commentary. Was he on the commentary for RT? He said he could only remember 3 in a game. Was it Martin Storey in a Leinster final or something for Wexford all those years ago? And then I saw on Twitter today somebody said Joe Canning did 4 in an All-Ireland minor semi-final against Limerick back in
an under-16 final, I believe.
Was it? Yeah. I mean, they just got better and better and better. And I mean, at the end, when he was putting them down, you know, after the second one and he put the third one down, you just thought, this is going over the bar. And sure, for the fourth one, it was a case of, here we go again.
We've seen this before. Shout out to, just before to butt in as well, Finton hit an absolute screamer of one as well. I know he was learning from the best as well, Finton Berkey.
That's right.
An absolute savage one as well.
Yeah,
like I know he ballooned one a bit wider earlier on as well, and the pressure moment in the game to nail it over as well.
That's right. That landed just on top of the net, didn't it?
Just scraped it over.
Yeah. But an unbelievable. We all know what a fantastic skill it is. But I mean, to do it time and time again, you know, Joe Canning just showed the skill level that guy has. My bad taste. It's not a bad taste in terms of what happened. I suppose the bad taste part of it is the guy could miss an All-Ireland final, but Aaron Gillane tried to stop McInerney driving down the field, and I mean, it was like trying to stop a bull coming out through a gate. Like, I mean, he just got absolutely driven out of the way by a monster of a man. But I hate to think that Aaron Gillane, after all the service he's given to Limerick, would miss an All-Ireland final. He went back to the dressing room and wasn't feeling well, and from what I gather, he was taken to a Dublin hospital by ambulance. So that wasn't nice to hear. It was by no means a dirty tackle. It was just, you know, a guy who just had momentum and blew another guy out of the way. So I really hope that for his sake and for Limerick's sake, that Aaron Gillane is fit to take his place for an All-Ireland final. So that's my bad taste, even though it's not a...
No, I see what you mean. Yeah, no, good call. Good call. Yeah, no, and definitely, you never like to see players miss an All-Ireland finals, no matter what.
Absolutely.
So we do wish them the best. And just on that as well, there has been an update as well, and a very welcome update, because I know a number of different managers have raised their frustrations on the matter that the full training panels will now be allowed in Croke Park for the finals. Common sense prevails.
That's great news,
because I should have put that as my good taste.
Yeah, there we go. Well, I've actually thought of another one from a bad taste that I could swing in.
I had 5 or 6 written down.
Is that your shopping list? Is it?
And the stuff you put up on the WhatsApp thing. Jesus Christ.
Before we move on and look ahead to another busy weekend of Gaelic football, this time we go back to the big ball, and we are at All-Ireland semi-final stage. But just to quickly get another dig in, I just thought of a good one from a very, very biased, and I should really put my Galway jersey on saying this one as well. My bad taste of the weekend is that rule that was changed where you did have 2 points from a sideline was removed from the game, because it would have been a great help to Galway had that been praised. I know John Kiley joked afterwards that I think he was asked, is there anything to prove on for the final? He's like, yeah, make the pitch bigger so we don't give away as many sidelines. But there we go. Yeah, so yeah, come on, let's go to it then. Let's look ahead to the semi-finals. Paul, I think I have to come to you first one again, and of course on Saturday night it is your mighty beloved Leprechaun Cavan And for anyone that is wondering why I'm saying this, prior to the Ulster final, when myself and Sean, as did a lot of people, I think, predicted that Donegal were going to be too strong for them and win out the Ulster title. And I know even myself, I got completely caught, because I was like, here we go, this is a team that can potentially give Dublin a bit of a rattle. Cavan absolutely tore into that game. We've spoken about that Ulster final on last week's show, or the week previous, I beg your pardon. And then Paul had tipped them into the Ulster final, saying that he felt that because of all the comebacks, they had a leprechaun as their kit man, and that's why they're on such a good run. So if anybody's just wondering why we're referring to a leprechaun, it's not a dig at Cavan. It's more of a private in-house joke here that we've shared with everybody. We've seen Cavan do a lot, Paul. This would be the leprechaun beyond on leprechauns if they were to be the team to stop Dublin. This remarkable Dublin side that absolutely blew me out of the water. Probably their best performance of the year, I think many people said. I know I was personally very pleased with them. Do you still have hope or are you really going to edge on and keep this in-house joke going?
You said there Dublin, it was their best performance yet, so they've reached the top. There's only one way they can go, and it's down. So yeah,
I think there's a collective sigh as everybody's listening to this. Goes, where is he going? Go on, justify it. Where do you see where do you see this Cavan team impact and damage? Of course, it is going to be in Croke Park still. There was a couple of whispers that might get it moved out to Navan or something like that.
Well, I heard that alright, but they were never going to get a change. It was always going to be in Croke Park. But I'm going to stick with my native Cavan because I backed them. they were up against it against Donegal, and they came out on the right side of it again. So I'm going to go with, I've no let's say logic
or anything like this. You're just jumping on Cavan. Keep this one brief.
I'm just going with Cavan. I was talking to the kit man there during the week. He said they're going well. The camp is going well. They're all excited for the match, and they've nothing to lose. So they'll be going. They'll be give it a good whack.
His name is Darby O'Gill, I think, is it?
I have to say, it was pleasing to see, despite, you'd forget about it at times, you'd almost forget about the emotional and, pride in your place and the attachment to driving up to the ladies semi-final there on Saturday. Cavan flags out every place. Even dropped in for a cup of tea on the way home at one of the petrol stations there. Cavan flags and Cavan all sorts of bunting and whatnot for sale and stuff like that. And even the local paper, the Celt, had a special pull-out or feature paper done out to celebrate when the Ulster as well on Pride and displayed right at the checkout just to grab your attention as you're about to leave. But it's still great to see that happening. But I don't know. I hate to burst Paul's bubble. I just can't see anything bar comfortable enough. Dublin win here. Are you going to throw a spanner in the works and disagree with that, or how do you see Saturday evening going 5:30? Croker available to watch on RT and on Sky Mix as well. You have both options. But what do you think when you're going to be watching Saturday night? Are you going to be seeing another All-Ireland appearance for Dublin?
Yeah, look, I just think Dublin are, and I get your point about Cavan. Look, it's brilliant for Cavan. I mean, even on the Toy show on Friday nights, there was Ryan Tuberty had 3 young Cavan children on, 2 boys and a girl, 2 brothers and sister, and it was just fantastic. They were there in their Cavan jerseys with their Cavan flags, and sure, that's what football and sport is all about. It's about those young people, their team win an Ulster Championship for the first time in a long, long time. And they can go to, obviously they're not going physically, but they can see their team on Saturday evening now going to play this fantastic all-conquering Dublin side and have a real go and be proud, whatever happens, that they've won their Ulster Championship. Now Mickey Graham and his troops will be going with different ideas. They're in a game. They're not going to go out and want to be embarrassed. They'll be going with a plan to try as best as they can to curtail this absolute juggernaut of a Dublin side. But you just can't see it. Okay, I know we said the same about Cavan and Donegal, but looking back at it, an Ulster final, in a fairly tight Gaelic grounds in Armagh, against the Donegal team, who I know we had all blown up and we felt were good enough to beat Cavan and should have been good enough to beat Cavan, but didn't. I think that surprise element now for Cavan is gone. And, Dublin with Desi Farrell and the experience they have and their just match-winning ability and their games, the way they can manage games, they're not going to be caught on the hop. They're just going to have too much all over the field for Cavan. Cavan will bring their strengths. They're a decent outfit. I don't think they're going to be able to score enough personally to beat Dublin. I think Andy Moran said a couple of years ago, to beat Dublin, you need to get at least 19 scores. I mean, that's gone up now. So do you realistically see Cavan getting enough scores to beat Dublin? I don't. And down the other end, will they have enough to hold these Dublin forwards who are, I picture these Dublin forwards at training nearly crawling over each other inside in training, trying to get on the A team, and the quality that they haven't even been able to introduce yet. Paul Mannion got a run in the Leinster final. Paddy Small has his place. Cormac Costello is back in the frame now after getting his red card rescinded. Ciarán Kilkenny,
O'Callaghan.
Bulger
had a great Leinster final.
Bulger, Sean, look, they roll off the tongue, and I just, as good as the year has been for Cavan, there's just too much quality in that Dublin side to slip up here. So yeah, Dublin will be in another All-Ireland final Saturday evening, and we just have to hope that whoever comes through from the other side might be able to rattle them. But I can't see Cavan being the one to stop them.
Yeah, and there's one moment that stuck to my mind really from the Leinster final. It was actually a couple of moments. So Meath, to be fair, started all right, and they had that opportunity. They got a great score after a turnover, and then it felt like that. Dublin, I think it was a turnover from a kick out as well. They went short and they got red. Next thing, Cluxon gets the ball, just pings it out the middle. It's a Clink Fenton catches it straight through, and Bulger ends up putting it to the net straight away. And it was like the blink of an eye stuff. I think they're just going to have a bit too much. Don't get me wrong. Fantastic achievement for Cavan to be even to us to be talking about Cavan playing the Dublin in an All-Ireland semi-final. It's beyond their wildest dreams even, but I think it's going to be too far for them, unfortunately.
But we spoke earlier, Paul, about when a team has a bit of a momentum on you and having things. I guarantee you Dublin, and I would nearly say Limerick hurlers are the same. If teams get a little bit of a run on Dublin, which is very unusual now, and I know your point, Jonathan, Meath had a good start. I guarantee you Dublin have something in place to combat that or counteract that. And I guarantee you that Cluxton kick out over the top is probably one of them. That they have it set up that, okay, if our opposition maybe are in control, they've got a goal chance, they've rattled on a few scores, they have this set play where Cluxton can put it down. Everyone knows what's happening. He might put up a hand or whatever he does, holds the ball under a particular arm. It's down on the tee, and Dublin run it like an NFL team. And it's out over the top, Dublin are down, and they get their score, which is more often than not a goal, and that kills a team then. So Meath have got all this possession, they've been huffing and puffing, they think they have Dublin on the rack, and the next thing, the ball's in the back of the net up the other end. That's what great teams do, and this Dublin team is a great team.
Yeah, I think we were talking earlier about Kilkenny and how when they were in their superior years, that's kind of what Dublin have now. If something goes wrong, they have I know that I think it was Owen Merchant was in the middle of the field there, and he just put up his hand like this, and it's as if they all kind of moved into a set basketball NFL plan. So yeah, they've got quality. You're just naming off. You actually forgot about Dean Rock there. He's so important. Any freeze within the 45, both sides, he's going to pop them over. They're just superior.
And Finton, Micheál Quirk, Kerryman over Laois, he did a podcast I think the day after with Off the Ball after Dublin beat Laois, and he was talking about Finton. He said this guy is gliding across the grass. He's like an Olympic athlete running around Croke Park, and would we love to see somebody rattle Dublin this year? I think if Mayo get there, they probably are now the outstanding candidate, if you like, to do that. But you'd still, if we're sitting here in a couple of weeks' time previewing a Mayo Dublin All-Ireland final, you'd still question who's going to get on top of the likes of these guys that we just named. So it's one game at a time, I know, but I just can't see anyone touching them, and Cavan certainly won't, in my opinion.
The only thing is, though, we've rhymed off, and I think that's a very good point you made there, Paul. You forget, how could you forget about a player Dean Rock's caliber? But you go through them, and there's so many options. But the only thing is, Paul, before we wrap up, they don't have a leprechaun, though. They don't have the leprechaun kit man. So
I don't know the Dublin kit man now. I'm not.
That's your homework for next week now.
That's my homework. Yeah. I know. Hopefully it'll be a good game. I know. I won't like the worst thing that you'd want to see is that it's just a demolition job. We just hopefully it's just a competitive something.
Absolutely, and but that's what we're looking at. I'm going to lock in Dublin. Sean's going to do the same, and I think Paul might he might say it on air, but I think he might come back and change the one because of course he has up to 5 minutes before throw in to change it, as does everyone. And make sure when you do it, when you are visiting playipredict.com, when you flick forward to the predict section and go into the football championship, that once you make your picks, that you press save predictions, because I keep saying every week. I got caught there a couple of weeks ago, and it's ruined my status in the game altogether. The other semi-final as well, and at the other end of the giant killing, if we want to call that, in terms of the provisional finals, we have Tipperary coming to Croke Park. They're going to go back to their traditional blue and gold jersey. We won't see that beautiful Bloody Sunday replica jersey that they wore in the Munster final, but they are going to be playing a jersey that needs no describing even other. The green and red of Mayo are coming to Croke Park this time without the fanatical amazing support that they have, but it's their first meeting since 2016 in the All-Ireland semi-final as well, a game that I remember watching. We were on the road, I think we were away with my parents at the time, and we watched in some random pub, and it felt like a very harsh, I can't remember the player's name, it was one of their half-back line. Tipperary got a very early black card at the time, but still Tipperary did quite well in that game, but Mayo showed their class in and took away. You felt like at the time that there was a little bit of kind of nerves on the biggest stage from Tipperary on that day. It was a huge occasion for them to be in. They've, of course, beaten Galway in the round previously, I think, or they're definitely knocked Galway out. The absolutely blew Galway to smithereens, really, in Croke Park. But they're back now. They're coming up as Munster champions. A little bit more experience behind them. Huge momentum behind them as well. That victory over Cork gives them huge momentum. They haven't had the chance to go completely crazy either in terms of the celebrations from that. I think Tipperary have a right good chance in this game, Sean, I have to say. Now, Mayo, of course, are, whether they want to like it or not, they are in a rebuilding stage. We've seen so many youngsters brought in this year by James Horan. Were a lot more dominant against Galway, but kind of almost still nearly got caught at the end. Maybe a decision 2 here and there. I did think that they were 3 or 4 points at least better than Galway on the day. They just scoreboard didn't really reflect the performance, but yet they could have been caught. But they are going to be coming up against what you'd feel like is a dangerous enough opposition now here, because all the pressure really is on Mayo. But this is as we saw in the Munster final, the performance against Cork was a joy to watch. Players, they feel like it feels like a full Tipperary setup. They have all the players back. Of course, the hÉireann back as well. He's got clear to play. It feels like everything is set up, that they're on 100%. Are we going to see this Tipperary run continue, or are you kind of going that Mayo will have enough experience to, despite the young team, to see this out?
Okay, so when you compare both semi-finals, you have 2 footballing strongholds really up against the 2 surprise packages of the year.
Correct.
In the Dublin Cavan game, my theory is, even if Dublin have an off day, they'll still have enough to beat Cavan. That's the way I feel about it. Mayo can't have an off day against Tipperary. If Mayo do, Tipperary will catch them, because Tipperary, in my opinion, have severe quality, particularly up front, that can cause Mayo problems. So Mayo and James Horan will know this. They can't have an off day. They'll have to have everything spot on, because Tipp will catch them if they don't. Tipp will know that they'll have to be at their very best. If Mayo are really motoring and going well and play like the Mayo that say beat Galway well in the league, then Tipperary have their work cut out for them, and they'll have to be very, very good. But if Mayo are any way off it at all, this Tipp team, as you said, Jonathan, they won't be nervous. They're backboned by a minor All-Ireland winning team from a couple of years ago. Well, when I say a couple, it's a good few now, but they're backboning that senior team. They have no worries about playing in Croke Park. They won't fear Mayo. They know Mayo have, let's be honest about it, got to this stage before, got to bigger stages than this, and maybe fluffed their lines. Maybe this is another time Mayo will do that. They have excellent forwards, particularly in the likes of Quinlivan, HÉireann, Sweeney. They've got good, hard-working guys like the Kevin Fahey at centre-back. Brian Fox does a lot of work for them. So they're a very, very good unit. But in saying all that, if Mayo can hit the heights that we know they can, which I feel they will, because they know they have a great opportunity to get to an All-Ireland final, I just fancy Mayo. I actually think if Mayo play to their potential, they'll probably win the game. Not handy enough, but they'll win it comfortably. I could see them beating Tipperary by 5 or 6 points if they play to their potential. If they have an off day, Tipperary could do what they did to Cork and win it by a kick of a ball. But I just think Mayo won't miss their opportunity to get to an All-Ireland final. I think they'll have too much for them.
Yeah, so you went for the outsider in the other game, Paul. What were you thinking in terms of this one?
I'd be the same now as Sean there. Like Tipperary, watching the Munster final there, they've really some serious forwards there. Like, and they're using the mark well. They're using that, let's say, part of football there. I don't know how long more it's going to be in, but they're using that option very well there. They're hitting Conor Sweeney and Quinlivan there with the marks. That's they're using that very well. But I think Mayo, we watched obviously the Connacht final. I think Mayo's, I think that was their off day. I think they just kind of grinded that victory out in Pearse Stadium. It wasn't a great spectacle to watch, 14-13, but they just got over the line and they didn't play well. I think they had a few weeks there now, and they kind of have a lot to kind of rectify all them kind of issues and the way that they'll all want to play a bit better and prove a point. And Tipperary, I think that they won't have the strength and depth that Mayo have there. So I'll be going for Mayo, and I'd be the same as Sean, probably 5 or 6 points. I think Mayo will win it by.
Okay, so the full sweep for Mayo, I'd have to concur and agree with you that I think it is the general consensus really that it's down to whether Mayo show up or not. I think Tipperary do have the potential if Mayo aren't at it. But that being said as well, we saw Galway who their season was kind of lopsided. They started at guns blazing, and then the break and the winter conditions didn't really suit the style of football that they were playing, and the breath of fresh air was kind of, there was a little bit of a stopper put on that. Galway went into that Connacht final in the worst possible preparation really. They got their arses handed to them by Mayo in the league, then lost the last league game as well, and then going into the situation with the Sligo not being able to feel the game, and then just was caught really then by Mayo. It'd be interesting to see if they'd got at Mayo over another game or two. But still, I think Galway will have shown Tipperary a couple of different angles of getting at Mayo, for not that they're going to need anything, because they, as you said, they do have some very attacking players. But it'll be the closest of the two semi-finals, you'd believe, and you'd think so. But I think Mayo are going to be a little bit too strong, and I think they are going to set up that Dublin Mayo final that a lot of people will have thought once Kerry were knocked out. Really, you saw the stars align that it was going to be Mayo and Dublin in the final. That's another potential game that we'll talk about a bit longer if it comes to that. But I just have a sneaky feeling that Tipperary might, if the stars align for them, they might be able to put a bit of a spanner in the works. But it would be a huge ask, really, wouldn't it?
If Tipp can set up, I don't know will they be able to against Mayo. They might, but if Tipp can set up with Sweeney and Quinlivan in a two-man full forward line, yeah. Paul mentioned the mark, but besides the mark, they're two dangerous forwards. If they can set up in a two-man full forward line and get ample supply into those guys, then Tipperary will have a great chance. They'll have a great chance because they're two of the best forwards in the country. But I just think that they mightn't be able to. They might need Quinlivan.
Age old, and you need a copy of them everywhere. You need them out the middle to win the ball and deliver it in, and be in the opposite end of receiving it.
No, the only thing, Reardon is a huge addition there, is particularly from their own kick out. My God, he caught some fantastic ones against Cork. But I think they just seem to be missing that link. If they move Quinlivan in and Reardon and who's their other midfielder? Is he Liam Casey, are winning the ball in the middle of the field. They can't deliver, particularly in Croke Park. They can't deliver first time into Quinlivan and Sweeney, because it'll be too predictable. They might need that link on the half forward line, and I think that's what Quinlivan gives them. He gives them that link, and then they try and hit Sweeney. But if they could, maybe at certain stages during the game, isolate the Mayo backs and have the two of them in around the edge of the square, that's very, very difficult to mark, So I give them every chance, Tipperary, but they will need Mayo to have a bad day. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up very, very quickly then, because I know we've kept you long enough. But I do feel like it has the potential to be an absolute humdinger of a game if both teams turn up and go at it hammer and tongs. I think it could be a really, really exciting game of football, because we haven't mentioned it yet, but Aidan O'Shea has caused untold damage really in full forward line. You speak on the mark, and we spoke out Fennelly and then a few others being so aggressive at the edge of the square. My God, you'd be doing well to stop him once he gets going. And then they do have a lot of runners off them as well. So I think it'll be a very tactical. I think tactics are going to be so important here as well, and how they get those matchups and what way they move around. And as you said, Sean, that variation of having them inside for a while and then coming out for a break, or vice versa. Because you have seen games against Mayo. The one that strikes to my mind straight away is that Donegal, the Mayo Ireland final, where it's first ball, Donegal saw weakness inside and they hammered in a high ball, and Murphy catches it and drives it to the net. Ultimately, it was the game deciding score. I thought Mayo were the way better team after that, but the damage has been done and stuff like that. So there's so many intriguing battles. I know it's a game we'll all be very close to watching. 3:30 on Sunday in Croker. And again, the
two Galway men are going for Mayo. Is that right?
I'm not sure if it's double bluff. Well, I'll put my predictions up on screen here now as well, just in case you think I'm waffling here or whatever. But as you see, I have Dublin and I have Mayo picked, and I'm going to save my predictions like this, and that's locked in. I'm not sure you guys will have your. I want to look at very quickly before we go then as well, just at the overall footballing, because I know, Sean, you were doing quite well in this. I'm down on where is Sean? Sean is
sixth.
He's in sixth, yeah, but only 2 points off the lead there. So that's the monthly one.
I'm still in the European spots.
I'll
Yourself and Paul are
I'll put
battling
you
it out
on the overall. Yeah, you're one place better on the overall. You're in fifth. There, Colm. That's Colm. I think it's Colm Moran from home. Top of the pile in, and Aina as well as another seasoned pro of this game. He's always up the top, no matter what the sport is. But yeah, do join along, folks. As you can see, just go to iPredict.com. You can go to the predict area, and you have the Premier League and the hurling and football championships there to predict and join along. Free to join, of course. But have a bit of crack back and forth with us. But I think that's kind of coming to us I'm going to wrap it up on that. It was an interesting week last week in terms of the semi-finals, an intriguing battle. I think the game I'm looking forward to really is the Sunday. I think unfortunately it's going to be a great occasion for Cavan, but I think Dublin will be too much, unfortunately, for them. But Sunday afternoon could be the potential for a belter of a game, and let's hope it is, no matter what the outcome. But there we are. Thanks to Sean and Paul for joining us. As I repeat, do join along and join playerpredict.com and take part. And if you are taking part, tag us on Twitter there as well. It's at playerpredict. See, can you beat the up-to-date score as well? Anything like that. See the good omen it gives these teams. But that's all for us here at iPredict. Thanks for playing. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, and we will chat to you all very soon.